She was only 9, trembling, barefoot, and whispering, "Mom, please, stop." Her stepmother's hand froze mid-air. No one in that broken house knew those words would echo into a miracle. Minutes later, a black Rolls-Royce pulled up outside, and out stepped her. The woman every headline called the ruthless billionaire. But that day, she wasn't ruthless, she was justice. What happened next would rewrite everything you think you know about cruelty, power, and redemption. The rain had begun long before dawn, beating against the tall glass windows of the Holloway mansion like 1,000 tiny fists. Each drop carried the weight of Lily's fear, soft, persistent, and impossible to ignore. She sat at the top of the stairs, her bare feet pressed against the cold marble, watching her stepmother pace below with a phone in hand and fury on her tongue. "Do you understand, Mark?" Vanessa Holloway's voice sliced through the air. "If the money isn't wired by tomorrow, they'll take the house. Everything your precious wife left behind will be gone. Before we begin, let me know where you are watching from. Leave your country name in the comments below. And if you love stories about courage, loyalty, and community, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next stories." Lily's heart clenched at the mention of her mother. Her real mother. She barely remembered her face now, just the warmth of her laughter and the scent of lavender that used to linger in her room. That scent had long been replaced by Vanessa's sharp perfume, the kind that filled every corner of the house and left no space for comfort. Lily pressed her teddy bear to her chest. "Mom," she whispered into its frayed ear, "please come back." Downstairs, Vanessa hung up and turned sharply. Her eyes landed on Lily like a predator spotting prey. "What are you staring at?" Lily froze. Nothing, ma'am." "Then go to your room. And next time, don't eavesdrop. It's rude." Lily nodded quickly, scurrying down the hall. But before she reached the door, Vanessa's voice struck again. "And clean that mess. The billionaire lady is coming tomorrow." Lily blinked. "Who?" Vanessa smirked. "Evelyn Carter, the famous one. She's considering investing in the Holloway Foundation. If she agrees, we might just survive this little crisis." Lily said nothing. She had learned silence was safer. That night, as thunder cracked above the roof, Lily curled beneath her blanket. She whispered her fears to the stars she could barely see through the storm clouds. Her stepmother's footsteps echoed faintly from below, pacing, shouting, breaking something. When the glass shattered, Lily flinched, and then came the silence. Heavy, thick, the kind that hides secrets. She didn't realize she had fallen asleep until the morning light spilled across her pillow. The storm had passed, leaving the air heavy with the scent of wet earth and broken promises. The sound of an engine drew her to the window. A sleek black limousine rolled up the driveway, its polished body reflecting the gray sky. The driver stepped out first, then opened the rear door with military precision. From the shadows emerged Evelyn Carter, tall, poised, wrapped in white silk that contrasted with her deep, radiant skin. She was the kind of woman who carried peace and power in the same breath. Her gaze swept across the estate before landing briefly on the upstairs window. On Lily. For the first time in weeks, Lily didn't look away. Evelyn's eyes softened, almost imperceptibly. Then she turned toward the door, unaware, or perhaps entirely aware, that she was walking into a house built on lies. Inside, Vanessa's smile was already fixed in place. "Miss Carter, what an honor. Please, come in." Evelyn's heels clicked against the marble floor. "Thank you, Mrs. Holloway. I appreciate your invitation." Their voices faded as they moved into the sitting room. Lily crept halfway down the stairs, listening as words like donation, investment, and charity filled the air. Pretty lies dressed as kindness. But Evelyn's tone carried weight. I don't invest in facades, Mrs. Holloway. I invest in truth. The words hung in the air like smoke. Vanessa laughed, forced and brittle. Of course, that's exactly what we stand for here. Just then, something small fell from Lily's pocket. Her mother's old locket. It hit the step with a soft, ringing sound. The two women turned. Evelyn's eyes lifted toward the stairs, meeting Lily's once more. Lily froze, her breath caught. The silence stretched too long, too deep. Then Evelyn spoke softly, as if to herself. You look just like her. Vanessa's face went pale. Excuse me? But before either could speak again, a sudden crack echoed through the house. Not thunder this time, but something deeper. From the far corner of the room, a door that hadn't been opened in years creaked slowly ajar. A chill swept through the air. Lily's teddy bear slipped from her hands and tumbled down the stairs, landing at Evelyn's feet. And in that fragile silence, Lily whispered, trembling, Mom, please, stop. The words hung like a ghost, echoing through every shadow of the house. Evelyn's eyes widened, not in confusion, but in recognition. Something had begun to awaken, something that would change both of their lives forever. The moment those words left Lily's trembling lips, time seemed to freeze. The echo of her plea, Mom, please, stop, drifted through the Holloway mansion like a ghost refusing to rest. Evelyn Carter stood perfectly still, her gaze locked on the little girl at the top of the staircase. Her hand, elegant, steady, powerful, trembled ever so slightly as she bent down to pick up the small teddy bear at her feet. It was old, worn, but stitched carefully on its tiny paw was a name. Lily. Evelyn brushed the dust from its fur, her expression unreadable. This belongs to you, doesn't it? She asked softly. Lily nodded, hesitant. Yes, ma'am. Vanessa's voice snapped the fragile silence like breaking glass. Lily, go to your room right now. Don't interrupt the adults. But Evelyn didn't look away from the girl. It's all right, she said, her tone calm yet commanding. Children often tell truths adults are too afraid to speak. Vanessa's smile faltered. Of course, Miss Carter, but... Evelyn straightened, holding Lily's gaze for a long, quiet moment. There was something there. Something familiar. Haunting. Impossible to name. You said Mom, didn't you? Evelyn asked gently. Who were you talking to, sweetheart? Lily's small fingers clutched the banister. I don't know. Sometimes I hear her. My real mom. Vanessa's face went white. She's just a child. Imagining things? Evelyn tilted her head slightly, her deep brown eyes sharp as glass. Children rarely imagine pain, Mrs. Holloway. They only repeat it. The air thickened. The ticking of the grand clock grew louder. Outside, the storm clouds that had retreated seemed to gather again, darkening the daylight. Evelyn turned away from Vanessa, her expression softening. Lily, would you like to walk with me in the garden? Vanessa tried to object, but Evelyn's authority was absolute. It's important I understand the home I might be investing in, she said smoothly. The stepmother's jaw clenched, but she nodded. Of course, as you wish. The garden behind the mansion was beautiful. Or at least, it used to be. Now wild ivy tangled through the old stone arches, and the once glorious fountain was cracked and dry. Lily walked beside Evelyn, clutching her teddy bear like a shield. Your home feels... sad? Evelyn said softly, eyes sweeping over the neglected flowers. Lily hesitated. It didn't used to be. My mom loved this garden. She planted those roses. She pointed to a patch of withered stems. But after she died, nobody took care of them. Evelyn crouched beside the flowers, touching the dry earth. Roses don't die easily, she murmured. They just wait for someone to believe in them again. Lily tilted her head. You sound like her. Evelyn looked up, startled. Like who? My mom. She used to say things like that. The wind stirred, lifting Evelyn's dark curls as she met the girl's eyes again. For the briefest moment, something broke inside her. A crack in the armor she had built from years of struggle, loss, and endless success. Evelyn Carter, the woman who had built empires from ashes, who was named the youngest black female billionaire in America, felt an ache she hadn't known in years. Because Lily's mother, the late Grace Holloway, had once been her dearest friend. The memory came back like lightning. A hospital corridor, white walls, and the sound of rain tapping on glass. Grace, laughing despite the IV in her arm, saying, "Promise me, Eve, if anything happens to me, look after her. She's all I have." But Evelyn had been too late. By the time she returned from her charity work in Kenya, Grace was gone. A heart attack, they'd said. The child had vanished into the care of her wealthy father, who remarried too quickly, too conveniently. Evelyn had searched, but every door had been closed to her. Until now. And now the girl stood before her, alive, frightened, and calling out for a mother who could no longer answer. "Lily," Evelyn whispered, her voice trembling. "Did your mom ever give you something special? Something to keep safe?" Lily nodded slowly, reaching into the pocket of her dress. She pulled out the locket that had fallen earlier. It was shaped like a heart, tarnished with age. Evelyn recognized it instantly, the same one she had given Grace years ago, engraved with a simple line, "Faith never dies." Evelyn's breath caught. She kept it. Lily blinked. "You know this?" "Yes," Evelyn said softly. "I gave it to her." The girl's lips parted. "You knew my mom?" Evelyn nodded, tears threatening to fall. "I loved her very much." Before another word could pass between them, a sharp crack of thunder split the sky. Wind whipped through the garden, scattering dead leaves. Evelyn looked up, startled. And then she saw it. At the edge of the property, near the iron gates, a man stood watching them. His figure was dark, unmoving, almost blending into the shadows. "Miss Carter," Lily whispered, her voice trembling. "Who's that?" Evelyn turned, but before she could answer, the figure stepped back, vanishing into the trees. A chill ran down her spine. Vanessa appeared suddenly in the doorway, her expression too calm. "Everything all right out here?" Evelyn's voice was steady, but her instinct screamed otherwise. "Yes. But I'd like to continue our conversation about the foundation. Privately." Vanessa smiled, but her eyes didn't. "Of course. Let's go inside." Evelyn took one last glance at Lily. The child's eyes were wide, full of fear and something else. A silent plea. "Stay strong, little one," Evelyn whispered as she passed her. "Faith never dies." As they stepped back into the mansion, a single petal, from the withered rose bush, fell into the soil and shimmered faintly, as if catching a light no one else could see. Somewhere deep in the shadows of that house, the past had begun to stir. And the storm, once outside, was now within. Night fell heavy over the Holloway estate, wrapping the house in a suffocating darkness that seemed to breathe on its own. Somewhere in the distance, an owl cried, its voice echoing through the old trees. Inside, Evelyn Carter sat in the guest room. Vanessa had so graciously prepared for her. Though it felt less like hospitality and more like a cage made of velvet. Her mind wouldn't rest. The image of the little girl, Grace's little girl, haunted every corner of her thoughts. Lily's fragile voice still echoed. "Mom, please. Stop." Evelyn opened her briefcase and pulled out a photograph she had carried for years, faded around the edges, but still clear enough. Two women smiling, arms wrapped around each other. One was Evelyn, younger and carefree. The other was Grace Holloway, radiant and full of life, holding a baby no older than 1 year old. Lily. I found you, Evelyn whispered to the picture, but I was too late to save her. She traced Grace's face with her thumb, fighting back the tears that threatened to spill. But then, a faint sound caught her attention. Tap, tap, tap. It came from outside the window. Evelyn froze. Slowly she stood and crossed the room, her heels silent against the carpet. Pulling the curtain back, she peered into the darkness. At first she saw nothing. Only rain and the faint shimmer of the iron gate in the distance. But then, from behind the oak trees, a figure moved. The same man she had seen earlier that afternoon. He stood there again, half shrouded in shadow. This time, however, his face was faintly visible under the glow of the garden lights. Rough. Weathered. Eyes hollow with something deeper than malice. Maybe guilt. Their eyes met. Evelyn's pulse quickened. The man raised a hand. Not threateningly, but as if to warn her. Then he turned sharply and disappeared into the woods. She grabbed her phone. The signal flickered. Weak. Of course, she muttered. The Holloway estate sat miles from the nearest town, isolated by design. Still, Evelyn was not a woman easily shaken. She had faced boardrooms full of men who doubted her, survived nights in war-torn villages, built empires from ruin. But this was different. The air itself seemed to whisper secrets here. Meanwhile, upstairs, Lily couldn't sleep. The storm had quieted, but her chest still felt heavy, like something was pressing down on her heart. She stared at the ceiling, watching the shadows shift with every flicker of lightning in the distance. From down the hall came the sound of voices, muffled but sharp. Her stepmother's tone was unmistakable. "She can't find out, Mark. Not now. Not when we're this close." Lily crept out of bed, careful not to make a sound. The hallway was dimly lit, the old floorboards cold under her feet. She followed the sound of Vanessa's voice until she reached the study door, cracked open just enough for her to see inside. Vanessa stood by the fireplace, clutching her phone tightly. "If she even suspects what happened to Grace, everything will fall apart," she hissed. The man on the other end, Mark, her father, sounded tense. "Vanessa, calm down. Evelyn, Carter doesn't have proof. No one does. But she's dangerous," Vanessa spat. "You don't become a billionaire by being naive. She's digging. I can see it in her eyes." There was silence on the line, and then Mark's voice dropped lower. "Then make sure she doesn't dig too deep." Lily's small hand flew to her mouth to keep from gasping. Her father's tone didn't sound like the man she remembered, the man who used to read her bedtime stories and tuck her in. It sounded darker. Her foot slipped slightly against the floor, and the wood creaked. Vanessa spun around. "Who's there?" Lily darted back into the shadows and ran. Down the hall, around the corner, straight into the one door she was never supposed to open, the door to her mother's old art room. Her stepmother had locked it years ago, claiming it was too painful to keep it open. But tonight, to Lily's surprise, the door wasn't locked. The key still hung in the lock, as if someone had been inside recently. She turned it slowly and slipped in. The air inside smelled faintly of paint and lavender. Her mother's scent. Dust danced in the moonlight streaming through the window. The room was filled with covered canvases, an old easel, and drawers that hadn't been touched in years. Lily pulled one of the cloths away. Beneath it was a half-finished painting, a portrait of her as a little girl, sitting beside Evelyn Carter. Her breath caught. She was here. On the edge of the canvas, her mother's handwriting curled in delicate strokes. Faith never dies. But there was something else. A faint smudge near the corner. No, not paint. It was a fingerprint, dried dark red. Before she could look closer, the floor creaked behind her. "Lily." She turned. Vanessa stood in the doorway, her eyes like knives. "What are you doing in here?" Lily's voice quivered. I wanted to see Mom's things." Vanessa stepped closer, her tone deceptively calm. "I told you never to come in here. Enough." Vanessa's hand shot out, gripping Lily's arm tightly. "You listen to me, you little brat. If you ever touch anything in this room again." "Mrs. Holloway." The voice came from the hall. Cold, steady, unmistakable. "Evelyn." Vanessa froze, her mask cracking for a fraction of a second. She released Lily instantly, forcing a smile. "Oh, Miss Carter, I was just—" Evelyn stepped into the room, her gaze sweeping from the painting to Vanessa's trembling hand. "Just what?" Vanessa hesitated. "She came in without permission. This room, it's private." Evelyn's voice was ice. "Private rooms don't need bloody fingerprints on the walls." Vanessa's lips parted, but no words came out. Evelyn turned to Lily. "Go to your room, sweetheart. You're safe now." The little girl nodded and ran, clutching her teddy bear. When she was gone, Evelyn turned, back to Vanessa, her expression sharp as a blade. "Whatever you're hiding, Mrs. Holloway, I'll find it." Lightning flashed again outside, illuminating Vanessa's pale face. And for just a second, Evelyn saw fear there. Real, unguarded fear. Downstairs, the front door creaked open. A gust of wind swept through the hall. And somewhere in the distance, faint but clear, came the slow crunch of footsteps on gravel. The man behind the gate had returned. The morning came gray and heavy, the kind of dawn that carried secrets in the mist. A cold silence settled over the Holloway estate, broken only by the distant caw of crows circling the bare trees. Evelyn Carter had barely slept. She sat at the small writing desk in her guest room, staring at a single piece of paper she had found slipped under her door sometime during the night. No name. No handwriting she recognized. Just one sentence scrawled hastily in pencil. "She didn't die of a heart attack." Evelyn's hands trembled slightly. She'd always doubted the official story of Grace Holloway's death. A sudden cardiac arrest at age 34. But this note wasn't suspicion. It was a statement, a warning, and someone inside this house wanted her to know. Downstairs, the sound of clattering dishes echoed faintly from the kitchen. Evelyn gathered her composure and went down, heels clicking against marble. She found Vanessa by the breakfast table, pouring herself coffee with a smile too bright for the dreary morning. "Good morning, Miss Carter," she said smoothly. "I hope you slept well?" Evelyn's gaze didn't waver. "Not particularly." "Oh?" Vanessa raised a brow, feigning surprise. "Old houses," Evelyn said simply. "They creak, they whisper." She paused just long enough to see Vanessa's hand tighten around her cup. "Sometimes they even leave messages." Vanessa set the cup down with a soft clink. "Messages?" Evelyn's smile didn't reach her eyes. "I found a note under my door last night. Odd, don't you think?" "I wouldn't know," Vanessa said quickly, though her tone betrayed a flicker of panic. Before Evelyn could reply, Lily entered the room, her hair messy, her eyes red from crying. She clutched her teddy bear and looked first at Evelyn, then nervously at her stepmother. "Good morning, Lily," Evelyn said gently. The girl gave a small nod. "Good morning, Miss Carter." Vanessa's voice cut in, sharp. "Lily, eat your breakfast." But Lily didn't move to the table. Instead, she looked up at Evelyn and whispered, "Can I show you something?" Vanessa's spoon froze mid-air. "She has schoolwork, Miss Carter." Evelyn smiled politely. "A few minutes won't hurt, will it? I'd like to see what she's been working on." Vanessa's eyes narrowed, but she said nothing. Evelyn reached out her hand and Lily took it. Together they slipped quietly from the kitchen and headed upstairs. The hallway was dim, the air thick with the scent of old wood and dust. Lily led Evelyn not to her room, but to the art studio, the one filled with Grace's paintings. "I came back here after you left last night," Lily said softly. "I had a dream. Mom was standing by the painting and told me to look closer." Evelyn knelt beside her. "What did you find, sweetheart?" Lily walked over to the half-finished portrait, the one of her and Evelyn together. "There," she said, pointing to the bottom corner of the canvas. Evelyn leaned closer. At first it seemed like nothing but layers of dry paint, but then she noticed it. Faint grooves beneath the brushstrokes, as if something had been scratched into the canvas before the paint dried. She tilted the painting toward the light. Slowly, the faint words emerged. "Look beneath the roses." Evelyn's heart skipped a beat. The roses. She turned sharply to Lily. "Your mother's garden. Do you know which rosebush was her favorite?" Lily nodded immediately. "The one by the stone angel. She said it was where she prayed." Evelyn stood. "Get your coat, darling." The garden was still wet from last night's rain, the grass glittering faintly in the morning light. The roses Grace had planted were nearly dead now, brittle stems and colorless petals, but Evelyn knelt before the one with the stone angel beside it. She brushed aside the soil around its base, her fingers cold and damp. Lily crouched next to her, watching quietly. After a few minutes of digging, Evelyn's fingers struck something solid. Metal. She cleared the dirt carefully, revealing a small tin box, rusted at the edges, but still sealed. She opened it with trembling hands. Inside were two things: a folded letter and a USB drive wrapped in wax paper. Evelyn unfolded the letter first. The ink was faded, but Grace's handwriting was unmistakable. "If you're reading this, Evelyn, it means my fears were right. Something's wrong. Mark isn't who he seems to be. He's hiding things. About his business, about the foundation, and about me. If anything happens to me, protect Lily. She's in danger. The truth is in the files. But be careful. They're watching." Evelyn's vision blurred for a moment, grief flooding through her like an old wound reopening. She held the letter tightly, her voice barely a whisper. "Grace, why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Ms. Carter?" Lily asked softly. "What does it mean?" Evelyn looked at her, this fragile, brave little girl, and placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "It means your mother was trying to protect you." Lily's lower lip trembled. "From who?" Before Evelyn could answer, the sound of a door slamming echoed from the house. They both froze. "Lily!" Vanessa's voice rang across the garden, sharp and furious. "Where are you?" Evelyn quickly slipped the letter and USB into her pocket. "We found nothing," she whispered. "Do you understand?" Lily nodded, eyes wide. Vanessa appeared at the patio door, her expression darkening when she saw them by the roses. "What are you doing?" Evelyn stood, brushing soil from her hands. "Just admiring Grace's garden. She had exquisite taste." Vanessa's smile was thin. Yes, she did. Her eyes flicked briefly to the disturbed soil, and for a moment, just a flicker, Evelyn saw something raw in them. Fear. "I'll have lunch prepared shortly," Vanessa said curtly before turning back toward the house. When she was gone, Evelyn exhaled slowly. "She knows," Lily whispered. "Yes," Evelyn said quietly. "And now, she'll do anything to stop us from finding the rest." As they turned to go back inside, Evelyn glanced once more at the rose bush and noticed something she hadn't before. On the base of the stone angel, half hidden by moss, were the faint initials: GH plus EC, Grace Holloway, and Evelyn Carter. Old friendship, eternal promise. Evelyn reached out, brushing the moss away. And as she did, the USB in her pocket grew warm, almost humming faintly. Somewhere inside the mansion, the lights flickered. And in a dark room upstairs, unseen by both of them, a man watched through a security monitor. His face tense, his voice low as he muttered into his phone. "She's found it." The house felt different that night. Alive, restless, as if the walls themselves were whispering warnings. A storm brewed again outside, wind howling through the tall iron gates, shaking the windows of the Holloway mansion. Evelyn sat alone in her room, laptop open, the USB drive from Grace's box glinting faintly under the lamplight. She hesitated before inserting it. Her instinct screamed caution. But her heart, still bound by a promise made years ago, refused to wait any longer. The screen flickered to life. Inside the drive were several folders, all labeled in Grace's handwriting: Foundation, Mark, Documents, and one with no name at all, just a single symbol: a rose. Evelyn's breath hitched. She clicked the first folder. Spreadsheets, emails, transfer logs, a labyrinth of financial documents that made her stomach twist. Millions of dollars moved through shell charities, hidden in offshore accounts, funneled through the Holloway Foundation. On paper, it was a charity for children's education. In reality, it was a money laundering machine. And Grace had found out. Evelyn opened an audio file labeled Grace Record 3 MP3. Her best friend's voice filled the room, soft and shaky. "Mark's changed. He's not the man I married. He's hiding something dangerous. I found forged signatures on the foundation contracts, and when I confronted him, he said I was mistaken. But I saw fear in his eyes. If something happens to me, Evelyn, promise me you'll find Lily." The recording cut off suddenly. A muffled thud, a gasp, then silence. Evelyn's blood ran cold. She leaned back, pressing a hand to her mouth. Oh God, Grace. A message window suddenly appeared on her laptop, one she hadn't opened. The text flashed briefly before disappearing. "Stop looking. You don't understand what you're dealing with." Her heart pounded. Someone was watching, maybe even inside the house. She yanked the USB out and locked it in her briefcase. Whatever truth it held, it was enough to destroy Mark Holloway and expose the web of lies that had trapped Lily in this nightmare. Down the hall, Lily sat awake in bed. The storm rattled her window, but something else kept her from sleeping. A faint sound, like humming. It came from her mother's locket on the nightstand. She sat up slowly. The locket glowed faintly, not bright, just a soft, warm pulse, as if it were alive. Lily touched it carefully, whispering, "Mom?" For a moment the air grew still. Then, from somewhere deep in the house, she heard it. The faint sound of a piano. A melody she hadn't heard since she was a child. Her mother's lullaby. Barefoot, she followed the sound. Down the hall, past the locked rooms, toward the grand music room that hadn't been opened since Grace's death. The door was slightly ajar. Lily pushed it open, and the music stopped. Moonlight poured through the windows, illuminating the dust that hung in the air like ghosts. The grand piano sat in the center, its lid open. No one was there, but one key, middle C, pressed down slowly, all by itself. Lily's breath caught. The locket in her hand glowed brighter, almost in rhythm with the faint hum of the piano string. Then, a whisper. So soft she thought she imagined it. "Faith never dies, my love." Tears welled in her eyes. "Mom?" Before she could take another step, footsteps echoed behind her. "Lily?" She spun around. Evelyn stood in the doorway, holding a small flashlight. Relief flooded through Lily, but Evelyn's expression was serious. "What are you doing here?" Evelyn asked softly. "I heard Mom's song," Lily whispered. "She was here." Evelyn glanced around the room, uneasy. "Sweetheart, it's late. You're probably tired. Your mind can—" But then Evelyn saw it too. The piano key pressing down again. Slowly. Deliberately. Her breath froze. Neither of them moved for a long moment. The only sound was the rain tapping against the glass. Then Evelyn stepped closer, picking up a framed photograph from the piano. It was Grace, smiling, radiant, holding Lily as a baby. And beside her stood a younger Evelyn, her arm around Grace's shoulders. The photo had been hidden there all along. Evelyn's throat tightened. "She's still watching over you," she murmured. "I think she's trying to tell us something," Lily said, her voice trembling. Something she couldn't before. Evelyn nodded slowly. "Then we'll listen." The next morning, Vanessa's facade was beginning to crack. Her voice snapped at the servants, her smile too sharp to hide the tension coiling beneath. Evelyn noticed the way Vanessa's eyes followed her every movement, guarded, calculating. At breakfast, Mark Holloway finally appeared, Lily's father, elegant but cold, his presence heavy with authority. His hair was graying at the temples, but his eyes were still the same, confident, unreadable. "Ms. Carter," he greeted smoothly, extending a hand. "My wife tells me you've taken quite an interest in our family's affairs." Evelyn shook his hand. Firm, steady. "Your foundation does admirable work, Mr. Holloway. I like to understand who I invest in." He smiled thinly. "Of course." For a moment their gazes locked, and Evelyn saw it, the flicker of recognition. He knew who she was. He knew she had been close to Grace, and behind that calm exterior, she saw fear. Later that afternoon, Evelyn returned to her room to retrieve the USB drive, but her briefcase was open. The drive was gone. Her pulse raced. She searched the drawers, the desk, even under the bed. Nothing. A chill ran down her spine. Then, on the nightstand, she found a folded note written in neat cursive. "You should have stopped when you had the chance." No signature. But at the bottom of the note was a single symbol. A rose. Evelyn's hands shook as she set the note down. Vanessa was no longer the only one hiding something. Someone else was playing this game. Someone who knew the same symbol Grace had used. Downstairs, the thunder rolled closer, shaking the windows. Evelyn glanced out toward the gate. And there, once again, stood the man in the shadows, unmoving, watching the house. But this time, he wasn't alone. A second silhouette stood beside him, and in the next flash of lightning, Evelyn saw what the man was holding, her missing USB drive. The storm finally broke. Sheets of rain poured down over the Holloway estate, drowning the world in silver. The air trembled with thunder, and the gardens below shimmered like a field of ghosts. Evelyn stood by her window, watching through the blur of water as the two silhouettes by the gate remained motionless. One of them, the taller one, held the USB drive, her USB drive. Without thinking, Evelyn grabbed her coat and slipped from her room. The house was quiet, too quiet. Even the creaks and sighs of the old wood had gone still, as if the mansion itself was holding its breath. She moved swiftly down the corridor, her shoes silent against the marble. A faint flicker of light spilled from the study. Vanessa's voice on the phone, sharp and brittle. "I don't care what it costs. She's not leaving this house until I get those files back." Evelyn's pulse quickened. Too late, she thought. Someone else already has them. She slipped through the side door and into the rain. The garden was a labyrinth of wet stone and wild roses, their petals glistening under flashes of lightning. Evelyn's coat clung to her, soaked within seconds. She hurried toward the iron gate, her flashlight beam trembling in her hand. "Hello?" she called out. "Who's there?" The taller figure turned. His face came into focus, rough, bearded, eyes tired and hollow with regret. He raised a hand slowly, as if in peace. "You shouldn't be out here," he said, his voice deep and raw. "Neither should you," Evelyn shot back. "You've been watching this house. You have something that belongs to me." He looked down at the USB drive in his palm. "You mean this?" "Yes." He studied her carefully through the rain. "Then you must be Evelyn Carter." She froze. "How do you know my name?" "I was there," he said quietly, "the night Grace died." Her breath caught. The world seemed to tilt beneath her feet. "Who are you?" He hesitated before answering. "Daniel." He took a step closer. "I worked for Mark Holloway, security. I saw everything." Evelyn's fingers tightened around the flashlight. "Then tell me." Daniel's jaw clenched. Grace found out about the money, the fake charities, the offshore accounts. She wanted to go public. That night, she confronted him. They argued in the study. He said she was destroying everything they'd built. He paused, rain dripping from his hair. Then she fell. Evelyn's voice dropped to a whisper. "Fell?" He nodded. "From the balcony. The official story said heart attack, but I saw him. He didn't push her, not exactly. But he didn't help her either. He just stood there, watched her fall." Evelyn's stomach turned. "And you did nothing?" "I tried," he said hoarsely. "But when I came back, she was gone. Vanessa told everyone it was an accident, and Mark paid me to stay quiet. I couldn't live with it. I left. But when I saw your name on the news, I knew you'd come for her." He stepped closer, holding out the USB. "Grace sent me a copy before she died. Said if anything happened, to give it to you." Evelyn stared at him, rain streaming down her face like tears. "Why now?" Daniel's eyes shifted toward the mansion. "Because they know I still have it. And if they find me before you do something with it, they'll bury the truth. And you. For good." A flash of lightning illuminated the garden. And for a brief second, Evelyn saw something behind Daniel, a figure by the rose bushes. Watching. "Daniel," she began. But her warning came too late. A gunshot cracked through the rain. Daniel staggered backward, clutching his shoulder. The USB fell into the mud. Evelyn dropped to her knees, grabbing it with shaking hands. "Go," Daniel rasped. "Take it to the girl. She's the key." "The girl, Lily?" Evelyn shouted. "Why?" But he didn't. "Answer." His eyes rolled back, his body collapsing into the wet earth. Evelyn's heart pounded in her ears. The second figure, as the shooter, moved closer, their face hidden by the storm. Evelyn turned and ran. Back inside the house, Lily sat awake again, the locket glowing faintly in her hand. The piano music had returned. Softer now, like a whisper through the walls. But this time, she wasn't afraid. She followed it. The melody led her to the main staircase. There, at the landing, a faint shimmer glowed in the air, a shape forming from light and shadow, a woman's silhouette. "Mom?" Lily whispered. The figure turned, a faint smile, her voice barely more than breath. "You're so brave, my little light." Tears spilled down Lily's cheeks. "Mom, what do I do? They're hurting everyone." Grace's spirit, gentle, glowing, reached out a hand that never quite touched. "Trust Evelyn. She carries my promise. And when the time comes, follow the roses." Then, like mist, she was gone. Lily blinked and gasped. In her hand, the locket had opened on its own. Inside, behind the faded picture of her mother, a small silver key gleamed, one she'd never seen before. Evelyn burst through the side door, dripping, breathless, clutching the USB. Her mind raced. Daniel was alive, maybe. But someone was out there, watching, hunting. As she turned down the hall toward her room, she saw Lily standing at the top of the stairs, pale and trembling, clutching her glowing locket. "Lily!" Evelyn gasped. "Are you all right?" The girl held up the tiny key. "Mom gave me this." Evelyn froze. "Where did you—" "She said to trust you, and to follow the roses." Lightning flashed again outside. The words echoed in Evelyn's mind. "Look beneath the roses. Grace had hidden one secret there already. Could there be another? Evelyn crouched down, meeting Lily's eyes. "We're going to end this, sweetheart, but we need to be brave." Lily nodded, gripping the key tightly. "I'm not afraid anymore." Footsteps sounded from down the hall. Vanessa's voice, sharp and venomous. "What are you two doing?" Evelyn stood, shielding Lily behind her. "Just saying goodnight." Vanessa's eyes darted to the mud on Evelyn's clothes and the USB drive in her hand. Her smile turned cold. "You've been busy." Evelyn's voice was calm but deadly. "So have you." Vanessa stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Whatever you think you've found, you won't live long enough to use it." Evelyn met her gaze evenly. "Maybe not, but she will." She nodded toward Lily. Something flickered in Vanessa's eyes. Fear, then fury. "Go to bed," Vanessa hissed. "Both of you." As she turned to leave, lightning flashed through the window again. For just a second, Evelyn saw it. Grace's reflection in the glass behind Vanessa, her eyes burning with a mother's rage. And then, the lights went out. Darkness swallowed the mansion whole. No hum of electricity, no flicker of light, just the steady rhythm of rain against glass and the low groan of thunder in the distance. Evelyn's heart thudded in her chest as she reached for Lily's hand. "Stay close," she whispered. Lily's small fingers tightened around hers. "It's so dark." Evelyn crouched, her tone calm but urgent. "Remember what your mom said. Follow the roses." The faint scent of wet petals drifted through the air, guiding them toward the grand hallway. Even in the dark, Evelyn could make out the pale shapes of carved roses along the wall's molding, a pattern she hadn't noticed before. As they moved, Evelyn flicked on the small flashlight from her pocket. Its beam revealed an oil painting at the end of the corridor. Grace Holloway, smiling serenely in the garden. Beneath her portrait, a gilded plaque read, "Faith Never Dies." Lily gasped. "That's what it says inside the locket." Evelyn nodded. "Then this is where we start." She shone the light around the frame. There, a small indentation in the lower corner, almost invisible. Lily's trembling hand reached out, inserting the tiny silver key. A click echoed softly. Then, with a slow, grinding sound, the painting shifted, revealing a narrow passage behind it. Evelyn exhaled. "Grace, what did you hide?" They slipped inside. The air was cold, thick with the smell of old wood and dust. The passageway sloped downward, lit only by Evelyn's wavering beam. At the bottom, a small door waited, locked with a heavy latch. Evelyn turned the key again. Another click. The door creaked open. Inside was a small room, barely more than a hidden study. Papers were scattered across a desk, a half-burned candle frozen in wax. On the far wall, a safe sat embedded in the bricks. And above it, written in faded paint, were the words, "For Lily, when truth is all that's left." Lily's breath caught. She left this for me?" Evelyn knelt by the safe. "Looks like she did. Let's find out why." She turned the dial slowly, but it wouldn't budge. Then Lily's gaze drifted to the locket still glowing faintly in her palm. "Wait," she whispered. "There's something inside." She pressed the locket's inner edge, and a tiny metal piece popped loose, etched with numbers, 317. Evelyn smiled faintly. Clever woman. She turned the dial, 317. A final click. The safe opened. Inside was a single leather-bound folder labeled Project Faith and a thick flash drive identical to the one Daniel had given her. Evelyn's hand shook as she opened the folder. Pages of financial ledgers, offshore accounts, names of shell companies. At the bottom, a single document bore Mark Holloway's signature. It wasn't just charity fraud. It was murder for inheritance. Grace had discovered that Mark and Vanessa were laundering millions through Grace's name. framing her charities as fronts for their empire. When she confronted him, Mark's empire and Vanessa's lifestyle were at risk. Grace's heart attack had been the final cover-up. Evelyn's jaw tightened. They killed her. Lily's eyes filled with tears. My dad. Evelyn hesitated, her heart aching. He made choices that hurt your mom, but she wanted to protect you. That's why she hid this. A noise from upstairs cut through the silence. Heavy footsteps. Vanessa's voice echoed faintly. Find them, now. Evelyn's blood ran cold. They know. She grabbed the folder and the flash drive, shoving them into her coat. We have to move, Lily. But before they could leave, something else caught Lily's eye. A small velvet box tucked behind the candle. She opened it. Inside was a gold ring engraved with the initials EC. Lily looked up. EC? That's you. Evelyn froze. She hadn't seen that ring in years. Grace had borrowed it before Evelyn's trip to Kenya, calling it her good luck charm. Tears blurred her vision. She kept it. The ground trembled suddenly, a heavy thud above them. Evelyn flicked off the flashlight. The muffled sound of boots drew closer. Lily, she whispered, stay behind me. The passage door burst open. Vanessa appeared, drenched from the rain, gun in hand. Well, she hissed, I suppose the ghost led you here after all. Evelyn raised her chin. Grace was smarter than you ever knew. Vanessa smirked, her finger on the trigger. And dead, just like you're about to be. Before she could fire, a blinding flash erupted, the locket in Lily's hand glowing brighter than ever. The light flared through the room like a living flame, forcing Vanessa to stagger back, shielding her eyes. A whisper filled the air, soft, familiar. No more fear, my little light. Evelyn turned, her heart pounding. Grace's voice again. Vanessa screamed, firing blindly. The bullet shattered the candle holder, sparks flying. Evelyn lunged forward, grabbing Lily and diving behind the desk. The gun clattered as Vanessa struggled to reload. Evelyn grabbed the nearest object, a metal candlestick, and hurled it. It struck Vanessa's wrist, sending the gun spinning across the floor. The two women stared at each other, one driven by greed, the other by love. Vanessa sneered. You think this changes anything? The police won't believe a child and a sentimental billionaire. Evelyn stood tall, her voice calm and steel-cold. They'll believe Grace. She held up the USB drive. Her voice is on this. Vanessa froze. What? Grace recorded everything. Evelyn smiled grimly. Including the night she died. Vanessa's face twisted. You're bluffing. Evelyn shook her head. Try me. For the first time, Vanessa's composure cracked. Give it to me! She lunged forward, but the locket's glow surged again, blasting the room in a brilliant light. When it faded, Vanessa was gone. Only the sound of the rain remained, steady and relentless. Evelyn turned slowly. Where Vanessa had stood, a rose petal drifted down, landing softly in the dirt. Lily whispered, Mom saved us. Evelyn drew her close, trembling. She always will. Then, faint and distant, sirens wailed through the storm. Later, when the police arrived, they found no trace of Vanessa. Only the open safe, the documents, and a child holding a glowing locket in her palm. Evelyn handed over the evidence, her voice steady. Grace Holloway deserves justice. The officer nodded, bewildered. We'll make sure she gets it, ma'am. But as they turned away, Evelyn looked down at Lily. The little girl was staring at the garden through the rain, at the rose bushes swaying under the storm's dying breath. Do you see her? Lily whispered. Evelyn followed her gaze. For just a moment, in the shimmer of rain and moonlight, she saw Grace, standing among the roses, smiling. Thank you, the voice seemed to say. And then she was gone. Evelyn knelt, wrapping her arm around Lily. She's free now, and so are you. But in the distance, thunder rolled again, faint, echoing through the hills. Because though Grace's spirit had found peace, one truth remained. Vanessa was still out there, and she wasn't done. Morning came slowly to the Holloway estate, gray, heavy, and haunted. The storm had finally passed, but the world it left behind felt changed, as if the air itself had absorbed the secrets whispered in the night. Evelyn stood on the terrace, her eyes scanning the mist-covered garden. The roses glistened with dew, their petals reborn after the storm. Somewhere beneath them lay years of silence, deceit, and one woman's love that refused to die. Behind her, Lily sat curled in a blanket, clutching a mug of hot cocoa Evelyn had made. The child looked exhausted, her eyes shadowed but calm. For the first time in her life, she wasn't trembling. Evelyn turned, kneeling beside her. "How are you feeling, sweetheart?" Lily looked up at her with eyes that had seen too much. "Safe," she said simply, "because you're here." Evelyn smiled faintly, brushing a damp strand of hair from the girl's face. "Your mom would be so proud of you." Lily held up the locket. "She's still here, isn't she?" Evelyn nodded. "Always." Just then, the front gates creaked open. 2 police cars rolled up the gravel drive, tires crunching in the silence. Evelyn rose, her expression steeling as Detective Warren stepped out, tall, tired, his coat still dripping from the rain. "Ms. Carter," he greeted, "we've reviewed the files you gave us. Offshore accounts, forged documents, fake charities. It's enough to reopen Grace Holloway's case." "And Mark?" Evelyn asked. Warren sighed. His will was manipulated. Most of the estate was transferred to accounts in Vanessa's name right after Grace's death. We have an arrest warrant. Lily's voice was small but steady. "Then she can't hurt anyone else?" Warren's jaw tightened. "We'll do everything we can to find her." Evelyn exhaled slowly. "Thank you." But deep down, she knew Vanessa Holloway wouldn't vanish quietly. That night, the house was eerily still. The police had gone, leaving the mansion under surveillance. Evelyn insisted that Lily sleep in her room. The girl had earned her peace. But peace, it seemed, wasn't ready to stay. Sometime past midnight, Evelyn woke to a faint creak. She froze. The clock read 2:14 a.m. Down the hall. Footsteps. Quiet. Deliberate. She slipped from bed, careful not to wake Lily, and grabbed the small pistol she kept in her handbag. Moving silently toward the door, she pressed her ear to the wood. The footsteps stopped. Then, a voice. Cold and familiar. "You shouldn't have come back, Evelyn." Her blood turned to ice. She opened the door slowly. Vanessa stood at the far end of the hallway, her elegant dress torn, hair disheveled, eyes burning with madness. The barrel of a gun gleamed in her trembling hand. Evelyn raised her voice just enough to wake the house. "It's over, Vanessa. The police have everything." Vanessa laughed, a sharp, broken sound. "You think they'll believe you? A stranger who came here chasing ghosts? They'll think you're insane. Grace's files say otherwise." Vanessa's smile twisted. Grace was weak. She chose love over power. And look where it got her. Evelyn took a step forward. She chose goodness. That's something you'll never understand. Vanessa's hand shook, the gun wavering. She ruined everything. Mark was mine long before she came along. She took my life. And I took hers. The words hung in the air like poison. Evelyn felt a cold fury rise in her chest. Then this is where it ends. A sound broke the standoff. A soft click. Lily stood behind Evelyn, barefoot, the locket glowing faintly in her small hand. "You don't scare me anymore," she said, her voice trembling but defiant. Vanessa's expression faltered. "You don't know what you're saying, child. I know you hurt my mom, and you tried to hurt us." Something inside Vanessa seemed to break. "You're just like her," she hissed. "That same look in your eyes. Always judging me." She raised the gun. But before she could fire, the locket flared again, brighter than ever, the entire hallway filled with a golden light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Vanessa screamed, covering her eyes. Evelyn lunged forward, grabbing Lily and pulling her aside as the gun went off, the bullet embedding harmlessly into the wall. And then, as if carried by the light itself, a voice filled the corridor, calm, sorrowful, and unmistakable. Vanessa. The glow shaped itself into a familiar form, Grace, radiant and ethereal, standing between Evelyn and her killer. Vanessa's gun dropped to the floor with a clang. Her voice broke. No, this isn't real. Grace's spirit stepped closer, her eyes filled with quiet mercy. You don't have to run anymore. Vanessa shook her head, tears streaming down her face. You should hate me. I did, for a long time, but hate only chained us both. The rain outside began to fall again, soft and cleansing. It's over now, Grace whispered. Let her go, Evelyn, let her go. Evelyn's chest tightened. Grace. But the spirit smiled gently at her. You kept your promise. Thank you. A blinding flash filled the corridor. Warm, weightless, like sunlight breaking through clouds. When it faded, Grace was gone. Vanessa collapsed to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. The glow in the locket dimmed to a soft, steady pulse. Moments later, the police burst in, weapons drawn. Evelyn stepped aside silently as they handcuffed Vanessa, reading her rights. She didn't resist. She only whispered one thing, over and over. She forgave me. 2 weeks later, the Holloway estate was no longer a prison. The windows had been opened. Light streamed through every room. The gardens, once choked by neglect, had begun to bloom again. Evelyn stood by the fountain as workers restored the grounds. Lily ran across the grass, chasing butterflies. The laughter that once seemed impossible now filled the air. Detective Warren approached quietly. It's official. Vanessa pleaded guilty, confessed to everything. You were right. Grace recorded the confrontation. The drive you found sealed the case. Evelyn nodded. She always planned ahead. Warren smiled faintly. What will you do now? Evelyn looked at Lily, her eyes softening. She doesn't have anyone left, so I suppose I'll be what Grace asked me to be. A mother? Warren asked. Evelyn nodded. A promise kept. That evening, as the sun dipped low, Lily sat beside Evelyn by the rose garden. The air was warm, peaceful. Do you think she's happy now? Lily asked quietly. Evelyn smiled. I think she's finally free. The little girl opened her locket one last time. Inside, where the key had once been, was a new engraving that hadn't been there before. Faint, shimmering in gold light. Faith never dies. It grows. Lily looked up. She left this for us. Evelyn pulled her close. Then we'll carry it together. The wind moved through the roses, scattering their petals like blessings. For the first time in years, the Holloway estate felt alive again, not with wealth or power, but with something far greater. Hope. And as dusk fell, a faint glow flickered among the flowers, the last trace of Grace's spirit, smiling as she watched the two people she loved most build something new from the ruins of the past. The light shimmered once, then faded into the stars. The night was quiet, peaceful, whole, because some promises, like love, never die.